We're at the Mishnah on Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Look the Mishnah. Kol Chai at the bottom of Chav Gimel. Kol Chai b'krisa shalaku nifter yedei krisasim. Whenever if someone has a isser that's Chai b'krisis, we know that the whole list of arayas is all Chai b'krisis. If the person gets malchus for it, meaning that he got a hasra for malchus. We're going to see there's a shita that holds you don't get malchus. Malchus instead of for karas. That malchus, receiving that malchus will excuse him from karas, so he won't have the einish of karas is that he dies early and his children have shorter lives. Where do we see this from? Your brother will be embarrassed in front of you. After he gets the malchus, and he gets this humiliation, then he becomes your brother again. Divrei Reb Chanina ben Gamliel. So Reb Chanina ben Gamliel says he becomes a chicha. He's absolved of his karas because he got the malchus. From Reb Chanina ben Gamliel, if someone does one of these averis that you get krisis for, he loses his life. That's what krisis is, that he dies early. Certainly, someone who does a mitzvah will get a schus of extra chayim, because we know that the midah of taiva is much better than the midah of paranis. That's always the rule. The Torah says that the person paikid avis albanim avnei banim al shleishim for 4 generations. Then it says the midah of mitzvahs goes for 2,000 generations. So it's 500 times as much. Shimon Omer, you don't have to learn it out from this pasuk. From the actual chi of krisis. In the parish of krisis, it says they're going to get karas. And it also says a person who will observe and avoid these krisis, he's going to live with them. That tells you that someone who doesn't do an avera gets a schar like someone who gets a mitzvah. So you certainly see from that someone who does, and what are we saying? We're saying he's not going to get krisis. So you see that someone who does a mitzvah gets chayim, right? We're saying that someone who avoids an avera is treated like someone who does a mitzvah, and he gets chayim. So therefore, we see that the oisa mitzvah gets chayim. Rav Shimon bar Rebbe Omer, Hariyu Omer, Rak Chazak LeBildi Echel Hadam Ki Adam Hu Hanefesh. Torah says that you have to avoid it. It's a isser to eat dam, and the pasuk says the dam is a nefesh. V'lo yisoichal nefesh im ha'basar. V'omer, so ma hadam shenafshel adam kotzim menu. A person mekabel schar. So certainly if we're talking about eating dam, which is something that no one really wants to do. It's not appetizing. You get schar of the Torah says l'man yitav loch. It doesn't have it on the side. L'man yitav loch l'zarecha. The schar of avoiding dam is going to be good for you and for your further generations, and you're getting it even though dam is something that a person doesn't even want to eat. Gazel v'arayis, avoiding stealing, and arayis, which are very tempting. Shenashal adam misavel lahen machmadosa. Person wants them. A person man alachas kama v'kama sheyiskalo yiladeres laderes deres of atzoi kaladeres. Certainly, it's going to be, like we said, 500 times as much schar for the things. I don't know why, but we said for dam, it says laman yitav loch l'zarecha. So certainly for something that there is a time before, your many dairis are going to be benefit. This should be familiar. Chananya ben Katzka says the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to be mezaka to Yidden lefika chebel and peru mitzvahs. Therefore, he gives them the Torah and the mitzvah. Shneimar Hashem chafetz aman tzidkai. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants that we should be tzaddikim yagdol Torah v'yadid, that we should learn Torah and the greatness of Torah, and that we should do better. Rabbi Yochanan, Chalukan olav chaver bar Chanani ben Gamliel. His chaverim argued on Chanani ben Gamliel. That was his first thing that he said. Someone who gets malchus as part of him cars. Amar Rav bar Abba Ami beirav tnin ein bein Shabbos le'yom Kippurim. El zez daine b'yei adam. Zez daine b'yei cars. The difference in Shabbos is that you get misa b'dei adam, and Yom Kippur is a chiv cars for someone who does malacha. Ve'misa aidi b'dei adam. Why are we saying that only Shabbos is b'dei adam? If we're saying that you can be potter from cars through getting malchus, malchus is b'dei adam. So really, even though we're saying it's karas for Yom Kippur, it's also b'dei adam, because the person can get, if he gets asra for malchus, he'll get malchus, and then he'll be potter from the karas. So you wouldn't contrast them and say Shabbos is b'dei adam as opposed to Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur could also be b'dei adam. Nachman by Yitzchak Aimer Hamani Rav Yitzchak Kida Amar Malchus b'chai v'krisis leka. This is going according to Rav Yitzchak. This that was saying that there's enough community between Shabbos and Yom Kippur, that only Shabbos is b'dei adam. It's according to Rav Yitzchak that says Malchus is b'chai v'krisis leka, that there's no Malchus at all for chai v'krisis. Even if you get hasra for Malchus, you don't get Malchus. So there's two levels of the machlokes. First, there's a machlokes about whether you can get Malchus at all for chai v'krisis. And then there's a second disagreement about if you say, not like Rav Yitzchak, who says that you cannot get malchus by krisis. If you say you can get malchus by krisis, does that malchus pater you for krisis? But this, he's saying that Bryce over there was going according to Rav Yitzchak, which is not what we pass on, like that there's no malchus on chai krisis. Tanya Yitzchak, chai krisis b'chal chai v'lama yatsa kars b'chai. So why did the Torah have to say a separate kars by the Gilei Arayis of his sister, l'daina b'karas v'lei b'malchus, to say that you only get karas and not malchus. Rav Ashi amafil temer rabbanon ze'ekas daina b'dei adam v'ze'ekas daina b'dei shamayim. You can even understand that which we said, that there's the nafkamina between Shabbos and Yom Kippur is that Shabbos is b'dei adam and Yom Kippur is b'dei shamayim, because the ikar einish of Yom Kippur is karas. So even though a person can avoid that by getting malchus, which would be the adam, that's not the ikar punishment. The ikar punishment is karas. There's an out. There's a loophole to get malchus, but that's not. So we don't describe it as b'dei adam. Amar Rav halach for Reb Chanan ben Gamliel. Allah is like Reb Chanan ben Gamliel. Amar Rav Yosef man salak liloi v'asa Amar. Who's the one who went up to Shemayim and told you that Allah is like him? Amalei Abaye Lahada Amar Rav Yishua ben Levi Shlosh Dvarim also bezin shel may shel mata v'skimu bezin shel mayla al yadam. Man salak liloi v'asa. We have a Kabbalah that there are three things that the Bezdin did over here, and the Bezdin Shamayla was masbid. How do we know what Bezdin Shamayla said? Ella Kroi Kodashin, Hachanami Kroi Kodashin. It's not, even though we're saying that the Bezdin Shamayla was maskim, but we still have a pasuk that tells you, like we said, that we said, we learned that from the Pesukim in Rav Chanan ben Gamliel learned it from a pasuk that we said that once he's laka, he's achicha. So that's really the source. But we said that in addition, we have a haskama from on top. Three things that the Bezdin Shamata did that the Bezdin Shamata agreed to. Al Yadam Eluhin Mikra Megillah. The Sanhedrin or the Anshe Knesset Gdoila was masakin that we should read the Megillah. She'ila Shalom b'Shem, that a person is allowed to address someone. You can greet someone using Hashem's name, as that's what we do today. Shalom is also Hashem Shalom. The name of Hashem is Shalom. Avos Meiser. It's certain halachas of Meiser that we're going to see in a minute. Ezra Sofer basically made out halachas that the Levium cannot take Meiser Rishon, instead it goes to Kehanim, and that the Chizkiyo, I think it was, took all the Meiser and collected it and distributed it. The Torah says that Kimu v'Kibla Yehudim, that they were Makabel the Dinim of Purim. It means that they accepted above what the Yidden made below Mikra Megillah. V'Shila Shalom d'chsev v'hinei Boaz ba mi beis lech v'yoyim l'koitzim Hashem imchem. Boaz said Hashem imchem, which is Lashon greeting people in Hashem's name. V'ayim Hashem imcha gibor hachayil. And the second pasuk, Hashem is together with you, the gibor hachayil. That's Malach said that. My v'ayim v'chitem v'Boaz hu David midait v'shmei Mishmailis Askimo Yadai. The reason why we had to say the second pasuk is because maybe Boaz was wrong. Tashma v'ayma Hashem imcha gibur achayil, which was a malach. Havos meiser. What do we see by havos meiser? So the view is called a meiser el beisa oisa v'yitarf v'beisa b'chanunia b'zois amar Hashem tzvah. Koisim le'eftach al chemes arubas hashamayim v'koisim bracha abelidai. It says, I think, like I said, it was Chazkiah that he collected all of the meiser into his storehouses, and then he distributed it. And he asked the Rebbeinu Shalom to. And the Rebbeinu Shalom said he's going to open up the skies to provide water, to provide rain. So you see that the Rebbeinu Shalom was masking. Mayad b'lidai amar barav ad sheyivlu sesechem lo medai. Until your lips get tired from saying enough, you're going to get so much. You're going to get tired of winning. Amar Balazar, begim mukayim esayfia ruach hakadosh bezdina shel Shem, bezdina shel Shmuel haramasi, bezdina shel Shloima. There are 3 times that the ruach hakadosh came and proved something, and by these 3 batei dinim. Bezdina shel Shem dechsev vayika Yehuda vayayim tzadka mimeni. Yehuda said when he got Tamar from Tamar, he got back his staff. He sentenced her to death because she was pregnant, and he said she was Mizana when he said she was over on Znus while she was a Yavam. She was supposed to be waiting to marry his youngest son. And really, Yehuda was the one who was born her when she was dressed up as a Kadesha. And Yehuda recognized her, his staff, and he said, she's right. Minoyad, how did he know? How did Yehuda know from the fact that he recognized who she was, and he was born her? Maybe she was born someone else. And he was a mishpacha, so it was a kiyum of Yibam, but maybe someone else who wasn't. Yatsu baskav amr mimeni yatsu kvushim, yatsu kvushim. He said the Rebbeinu Shalom sent a baskal that said that it was Yehuda knew that it was from him and it wasn't from someone else. Bezdina shel Shmuel b'sev hini anu bi neged Hashem v'neged Meshichai eshar mi lakachti. This is when Shmuel was appointing Shaul as the king. He said, "You can trust me. When I ever done anything against the Rebbeinu Shalom, did I ever take even a shar? V'yomru lo yashaktani v'lo ritzasuni. V'yomer eid Hashem v'eid Meshichai ki lo matzasa b'yadi me'uma." He said, "I didn't take anything, and I never got anything." And he said, "The Rebbeinu Shalom should be the aid that nothing was ever found in my hand." V'yomer eid. And the Olam said, "Aid, we testify like this." Vayomer, vayomer mi vayalei. Why does it say vayomer? It says vayomer. It says the congregation said. Then it should say vayomeru. It should say if it's the whole congregation saying it, it should say a lashon rabbim. So we mean because yatsa baskal v'amrani aid b'davazeh that the baskal came and said an aid that Shmuel never took anything, and therefore he should be trusted to say that Shaul should be the king. The famous story of Shlomo, right? That he splitting the baby. So he said split the baby, and one of them said, "Okay, go ahead," and the other one said, "No, don't split her." So he said, "Give the unsplit baby, the yellet, to the mother who had Rachmanis. And don't kill it. Because this is a mother. How did he know? Maybe the mother wasn't so stupid. She realized that Shlomo was making a test. He wasn't really going to kill. So how you probably when you heard the story when you were a kid, you thought the same thing. I would never fall for that, right?
I thought in those days, kings did things that
no one knew. Yeah. Yatsa Baskav Amra he imai. So the reason why he knew, why Shlomo really knew, is because it was a Baskal. Amar we might. Dilma Yehuda given this Gemara. Rava says all these rayas are not good rayas that it was a Baskal. Dilma Yehuda given the Chosh of Yarche v'Yumi. Bishrami the Chazin Maskin of Loimachzin Loimaskin. Maybe Yehuda knew it was him because he counted from when he was born, or it was 9 months later, and he said, "I know that I was born." Or to think that someone else who we don't know about was the father, I wouldn't guess that.
Remote.
Yeah, it's not likely. Shmuel Nami Kulu Yisrael Karelei B'Lashon Yechidi. Even though it says Vayomer, so we say that means it's a Baskal as opposed to against Klal Yisrael. Sometimes we call Klal Yisrael Lashon Yachad. Yisrael Noitzav Hashem. Yisrael, we call Yisrael as an individual. Shlomo Nami Midahakam Merachmasa V'Haloi Kam Merachmasa. Like you said, the fact, even though they could have been ma'arim, but still, like the mother would not take the chance that he wasn't gonna go crazy and kill the baby. Ella Gemara, Elamai, it's just halach l'moshe misin that we know that a baskal came out. The 316 mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs. Shalosh Shemeis of Shishim V'Chamish Lavin, 365 Lavin Kaminyan Yimai Sacham, like the days of the year. Masayim V'Abba Mishmoina Asay Keneged Aver of Shaladim, 248 essays like the limbs of a person. Amrav Amuna, Mikra, where do we see 613? Torah Tzivalana Moshe Marasha. Torah was given to Moshe as a inheritance. Torah b'gematria. Torah is b'gematria 611. Shismei v'chad 611. V'chad sorry. Ahavi Anoichi v'lo yelecha v'pi agvur shemanim. And then the first two of Anoichi and Lo Yelecha, the first two Avodas Dibros came from the Baruch directly, so therefore they were not included. That they were Moshe Rabbeinu gave it. He didn't give those two, so therefore it only has 611. But David b'midan al achas esrei. David narrowed it down to 11. He saw that 613 was too much, so he simplified it. It doesn't mean that he said you don't have to observe the 613 mitzvahs, but he sort of simplified it. He made it into 11 rules that you can follow. The Chsiv, Mizmal David, Mi Yagaba Alecha, Mi Yishkan Bahar Kachecha, who will live in your tent, who will reside in your holy mountain. Hailech Tamim. So the first one is someone who goes with Tmimas, with honesty. Upayel Tzedek, who does kindness, who does the right thing. V'daiver emes, who speaks the truth, Bilvavai, in his heart. Loi regal alul shaina, he doesn't say anything false. He doesn't do bad to his friend. And he doesn't embarrass his karav. Nivza be'enav nimas, and the one who is bazui, he will be disgusted by this. Yirei Hashem yichaven, and he will honor those who are Yirei Hashem. Nishbar Ravla Yamir Kaspai. He Nishbar Lahara, but Yamir Kaspai. If he makes a shvuah that will hurt himself, he will not exchange it. He won't He won't try to go back out of it. He doesn't give his money with interest. He doesn't take sheikhad to rule against someone who's innocent. One who does these will never be diminished. Hailach Tamim. So we explain all these things. The first one is Hailach Tamim ze Avram. Dechsev Hisalach Lafan. Havayei Tamim. Avram was a Tamim that, like the pasuk says, that the Baruch Shem said that about him. Payel Tzedek, going Abba Chelkiyo. The Payel Tzedek is like Abba Chelkiyo. I don't remember all these things offhand. Yeah. V'doiver emes bilvavoi. Going Rav Safra, where was Rav Safra? Rav Safra b'shul zeracha v'hachi hava ovda. Rav Safra hayli chayfetz echad limkar. Right, he was someone who was sleeping, and someone came to offer. He was davening, and a person came to offer him, and he said the guy offered him $100, and Rav Safra was davening, so he didn't answer. His middle of Kriyashma, he didn't answer, and the guy kept on offering more. At the end, he said, "I'll take the first price you said because I agreed in my mind," which just goes to show you that he was Lamaisa. It's very hard to, even Rav Safra was distracted by the guy offering him the money in his mind. Yeah.
We expected.
Yeah. What do you want from us? Loi regal al shainai. He wouldn't say any dishonesty. He was reluctant to fool Yaakov for the brachas until his mother told him that this is what the Baruch Shem wants. He won't do bad to his friend. That he won't open a store next to his friend and diminish his livelihood. Someone who doesn't allow Bizayin to come to his family, this is someone who helps out his family, that by helping them, by keeping them close, he can make sure they don't come to ruin. Nivza be'enav nimas, he looks down at those who deserve to be looked down at, those who are avaryanim. that he dragged his father's bones to show that he wasn't nachas to his averis. He instituted avedis kachavim in Eretz Yisrael. That's Yarei Hashem Yechavet. He honors the Yarei Hashem. Zeh Yishavet Melech Yehuda. Shebeshasha HaYarei Talmid Chacham HaYayim Mekisei Mechavkei Menashkei. When he saw Talmid Chacham, he would stand up from his throne and he would hug him and kiss him. But Karelei Avi Avi Rabbi Rabbi Mari Mari. Nishbar Avli Yamir, someone who makes a shvua and he doesn't back off him. Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan. Hey B'Tainus Acha Avi LaBeisi. He may said, I'm going to be in a Tainus until I get to my house in order to. I think he was saying it in order to bring the rains. Which no, he was trying to avoid being invited to the house of the Reish Galusa or the Melech because he didn't the Nasi he wasn't comfortable there, but it wasn't a real Shavua, and even so he didn't retract it and say I'm going to eat. That means even to you to charge interest to Ovid Kechavim. The Mefarshim all say that this is not halacha l'maisa. L'maisa it's mutter to take ribbis in it. We don't.
Is this a chumrah?
It's not. Listen, if you say a person should look for a job that allows them to work with chalav and nikia, so maybe this is the nikia. It's better to be a plumber than to be a banker, lending out money for interest. It's not looked upon as the best thing. I don't know. Maybe it's not, you're not doing anything wrong. I don't think you're being over anything. But if someone has a choice of being a dance teacher or being a rebbe, is the one dance teacher doing anything wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. It's better to be a rebbe. So maybe we should aspire not to lend to. It's not. I don't think it's the craziest thing.
So, but snoky. I mean, plumber is not really something that's snoky.
It's nucky doesn't mean physically nucky. It means nucky for your neshama. People are paying you to do a job that they want you to do. They know what they're paying you. It's very clean. Clean in that sense. Yes. I always said I wanted to be a sanitation worker. You outside, you're doing physical work, you're done probably by 11 o'clock, and then you have the rest of the day to learn. It's not a bad job. I think they get very good overtime when it snows. Yeah, that's my idea of a
that is
kala.
Typical Jewish route.
No, I know. Like Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi, he wouldn't accept the bribes. He was somebody that someone tried to offer him to pay his aris offer to pay him a day early, and he wouldn't accept it because he was appearing before him in court. He wouldn't judge him. The people who do this, they will never be diminished. Only if he does all 11 of these things. But if I only was able to do one, then I will be diminished. It says who does these? Even if you do one, that's going to be enough. If you don't say like this, it says you shouldn't be tummy with any of these things. If even though we list a whole bunch of things that can be mitami, it doesn't mean that if you have to touch all of them to become tummy. It means if you touch any one. So similarly over here, if you do any one of these things, these are all things to aspire to. And if you do one, you should know that's going to stand you in good stead. Over here also means one of them. He reduced it even to 6. He does it betzidkus, b'dayver mesharim. He speaks straight. Moyes bebetza me'ashakos. He's disgusted by profiting from dishonest things. He shakes his hand to get rid of bribery. He closes his ears from hearing what he shouldn't hear. Damim, we'll see, means from hearing. Daimim, to be quiet. He closes his eyes from seeing bad. Heilig tzedakah is Avraham Avinu Sivi Yadat V'Man Shiyitzava as Banav Bnei Banav Achra. It says over there that he's Heilig B'derech Hashem. So that's a reference to Avraham Avinu. V'Doiver Mishram Zeh She'enim Min Maknit Panav Chaver Barabim. He doesn't embarrass his friend in public. Moyis Bebetza Me'ashakos. He's not willing to have to anything that's not straight. Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, like Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, I think we described him earlier. Was Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha? I don't know. Forgot what he was. Noyer kappa mitoich b'shoichad. He closes his hands from taking bribery. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi, what we discussed before, that his Oris came and he wouldn't take from him. That he won't hear anything negative said about Talmidei Chachamim and be quiet. He'll defend their honor. Like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, that we had this back about Metzia. There's a whole story that a woman had a corpse in her. She had her husband's in her house, and his body started to decompose, and they overheard the talking, and they tried to say bad things about it, and he protested. But he stops his eyes from saying bad. Like Rabbi Chiba says, that's talking about someone who makes sure not to walk by when women are washing in the river, because they'll see a lack of tznius. Someone who does this, he will live on high. Micha made it 3. Tell people what's good. What does Hashem want from you? Rather, only wants is that you should do the right thing. You should do justice and pursue chesed and go with humility. That means to provide din, to do what everyone knows is right. To provide, to be charitable. These are things that are normally done in public, and you do it without making a fuss about it. If these things, that people make speeches and it's all out and open, a person is advised to do it with tzina, with tznius. Certainly, when one gives, let's say, money to someone who's in need, you should certainly not crow about it. Yeshayahu made it only 2. Shimru Mishrit Vasut Staka, he left out the last one. Although the one thing you have to do is you should just follow me. The Baruch I'm saying, follow me, and then you'll live. So how did you make it any easier? You're saying he made it into one thing, just follow the Rebbeinu Shalom and do all the mitzvahs. What have you haven't made it any easier? If one has emunah, all you have to do is work on your emunah, and everything else will follow from that. So all these things are not saying that you just have to do one thing, but it's simplifying what you have to do. You think you have 613 mitzvahs to learn, it's too much, or it's too much to follow. But if you look at it just that I want to be a maimin in Hashem, then everything else will follow from that. There were 4 gzeros that Moshe Rabbeinu made, and the Nevi'im came and Mavat. Moshe Amar Yishkan Yisrael Betach Bedod. Ein Yaakov, Yidden will live by themselves with security, because they have someone similar to Yaakov, with the coming from Yaakov. So, he came and he said, we're going to stop this. You're not going to have another Yaakov. You can't expect that the security of Yidden will come from the Midas Hadin of having someone at the level of Yaakov. He was Mavatal, and he says we don't need such great tzaddikim. The Baruch Shalom had charata on this. Moshe Amar, Moshe Rabbeinu said, that he said that like almost like a gzeira on the Yidden, they're not going to have any peace. They're not going to be. It's not going to go easy for them when they're sent into Galus. But Yerbi V'Yama Halach La'Gia Yisrael. You go into Galus and you'll still have peace. Moshe Amma Paikid of an Avis Albanim. Moshe said that the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to revisit the sins of the fathers on their children. But Yecheskel Bidla, he said, no, he Thomas, only the one who did the chait, he's going to die, not his children. Moshe Mavatim Bagayim, you're going to be lost amongst the Goyim. He said, no, that the great horn will sound and Yidden will be redeemed from Galus. So they're not going to be lost. All these things Moshe Rabbeinu did b'minas hadin, and they were chayzer and said we're going to do it with chesed. Amarav, mistapina mehad krav v'atem bagoyim. Rav said I'm worried about it. It says that we're going to be lost in the Galus. Maskal or Papa. Dilma kavedam bisvakashis. Maybe it just means like something that's lost, but will be found. Doesn't mean you're going to be lost forever, just temporarily. The siv to isi kaseh oived got lost like a lost sheep. Bikish avdecha, and is looking for what the lost object. So you see, something vavadatam could just mean lost, not permanently. The land of your enemies will eat you up. So that's what he was worried about. It sounds like they're going to be consumed. Maskat lo mazutim said, no, you don't have to worry about that either. Dilma kachilas kishum v'dilum. It means like eating up cucumbers and gourds. That when you have a plant, you take a couple of them and they regrow right away. They were going on the way. They heard the laughter of the Romans from their plazas. They were doing very well. Everyone was joyous. They were 120 very far away. It was so loud, and they were so secure and happy. They started to cry. Rabbi Kiva Mesachik started laughing. They asked him, why are you laughing? Why are you crying? And these goyim that bow down to avodah zara and they bring karbanos to them, Yoshin Betach, they're sitting in security, and in peace. Anu Beis Hadoim Raglei Kenu Saraf, and our Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. He said it's a terrible thing. It's destroyed in fire. We shouldn't cry. That's why I'm laughing. If this is what the Baruch Shalom does for the people who do Averis, the Romans, we're certainly going to benefit greatly from the Baruch Shalom. They were coming up to Yerushalayim, and they came to Eretz from where they could first see the Beis Hamikdash. They started to rip their clothing. They saw a fox coming out of the Beis Kachei HaKadoshim. Everyone with Rabbi Kiva started to cry. Rabbi Kiva started to laugh. Why are you laughing? Why are you crying? This is the place. They said this is the place that is Zar if he goes and will die. Now foxes are going in it. We shouldn't cry. That's why I'm laughing. The Rebbe says, I have my two Eidim, Uriah HaKayin and Zechariah ben Yibchayo. What do the two have to do with each other? Uriah ben Mikdash Rishon, Zechariah ben Mikdash Sheni, they were two separate Mikdashes. Ella, Tala Kasan V'Wasser Zechariah ben V'Wasser Shal Uriah. The reason why the Rebbe put them together is because the Nevuah of Zechariah is dependent on the Nevuah of Uriah. But Uriah was the one who was Misnava on the eventual destruction of Tzion, that it's going to be plowed over like a field. That eventually the Zkenim and the Zkenis will sit in the streets of Yerushalayim, and then Mashiach will come. I was worried. I didn't see the Nevuah of Uriah being miskayim. Said Akiva, you have consoled us. Mazel tov. As Hashem, Shavuos.
Yeah. Actually, this morning you said it was smooth. This person What do you think the Peter? We're talking about, you want some shit or?
Listen, you have to ask your Hashkafa Rebbe. I'm not a Hashkafa Rebbe. That's Rabbi Tversky. I think they'll probably say this is not what the Navi was talking about. It could be a time we're going to sit there without worrying about the suicide bombers and without worrying about attackers.
That's all it says.
Oh, yeah, I should have seen it.
I think the children's gonna play. Virtually stop.
Every back in '67, everyone from all walks of Klal Yisrael celebrated.
Almost.
Yeah, even Satmar. Most Satmar as individuals. This Satmar Rebbe was, but everyone thought they thought he was 100% wrong. I still think he's 100% wrong, but people at the time have forgotten about how much it helps you and how you didn't have a place where they're safe. I'm not the guy to answer it. I could just tell you what I personally think. I definitely think we don't know that it's not going to change in 10 years. We don't know until Mashiach comes. We just don't have that final security. But it certainly appears like it's the beginning of the Gula.
I don't think it could have been imagined 100 years. Maybe 200 years.
Even 80 years ago, in 1945, just 3 years before the Medina was put together, and even in 48, they weren't sure if they were going to survive then, and they didn't until 67. They really had no security. They had 20 years where there were like millions and millions of people on top of us. Yeah, but Shabbos. Who is the Shabbos? It's perfect timing. We're learning about Shavuos right before Shavuos.
Yeah.
Morning. Morning. Good morning. I feel bad for you. You're gonna have to deal with compost. You get paid, but it's gonna be smelly. Take care. Have a good day. and